What will it take this investor guy to offer this 3-month course at IIM Bangalore?
I will provide you the data, you provide us the perspective, and together we can solve the problem.
That 3 point thing that I just heard, the best framework that I could have heard from anyone.
Huge confusion in the mind of the student that, what do I do with my career? And management is a very applied field. There's too much of the influence of the senior batch, who in turn were influenced by their senior batch. 300 cases, which are written by our colleagues, being taught all across the world.
What are the small or big things that we as alumni can do?
There is plenty of that scope. One is that I think not only IIMs but even IITs, we are not very good in industry academia collaboration. Our alumni can be a very strong connector between us and the industry, because today the situation is that the academia like us, we are probably a little bit away from the realities of the industry. We would not like to engage with the current problems, but we look at it more from an academic perspective, and the industry is also looking at very focused on current problems, and they don't appreciate that what would typically the value that can an educational institute create. And so none of us are shaking hands with each other. I think that bridging mechanism can be done by alumni. So we are talking about, say, an alumni who runs a company who comes to IIM and said, well, I am facing this problem. Can you get involved? Can we do joint research? Can we provide? I will provide you the data. You provide us the perspective. You provided the framework, and together we can, either bring out a paper, publish, or solve the problem, and so on and so forth. So I think that's definitely a big way in which alumni can be of help, and that I don't see that happening. We have to make it happen, pushing both ways. Likewise, when we are talking about developing joint academic content, offering joint courses today, happening in bits and pieces, but I think we can do it in a much structured manner, much better manner, because management is a very applied field, in unlike maybe some aspect of engineering or sciences, right? This is where you need to study the phenomenon that is happening out there. Who best to do that apart from our alumni? And us faculty members can even combine with them. So the first part I talked about is solving industry problems, bringing about industry academia collaboration. The next part I'm talking about is developing academic content, educational content with industry academic collaboration. And the others are low hanging fruits, right? Alumni should come and teach more often. They should be invited as guest speakers. They can act as solid mentors for our students. I mean, today there is this huge confusion in the mind of the student that, what do I do with my career? And I was telling today that to a couple of my students who were talking with me that you guys are only following conventions. I mean, you people don't stand for your convictions. I would look at my batch of 180 students, that is you guys, and I would see a lot more people standing for their conviction than conventions. Whereas I don't see that in today's batch, because there is too much of this group thing. There's too much of the influence of the senior batch, who in turn were influenced by their senior batch. And we should not be like this. I mean, we are one of the most privileged students in India, right? I mean, you guys sitting in IIM Bangalore, right?
Yes,
I mean, the world is at your feet. So you
yes,
do stuff which you think you want to do, and not really do stuff just because somebody else is doing that, right? But I think alumni can play a very important part, because the students typically believe that these profs are, they keep on telling the stuff, which is not relevant, because these people themselves are not in the industry. But if people like you come and tell them in the right manner, then they are likely to listen to you a lot better. So I think this whole range of activities where we can certainly up the engagement between the alumni and the institute.
I think Saurabh, that 3 point thing that I just heard, the best framework that I could have heard from anyone about the engagement, about alumni and everything. So here is the thing that Harvard is the big leader in, which is Harvard Case Studies, HBS Case Studies.
Yeah.
Right. Even Stanford, even LBS, even everyone in the world does HBS case studies. Is there a sense in trying to do some IMB case studies?
Today in IMB, we rarely teach HBS case studies, because we took a target about 10 years ago, that at least 50% of our case studies in class has to be written by us. Today,
Interesting.
it is actually much more than 50%. So my course is all cases, Indian cases, written by us, right? And what we have also done is now we have a tie up with Harvard itself that our case studies get published by them. So if you go to the Harvard Business Case Repository, you will find about 300 cases which are written by our colleagues and which are being taught all across the world, right? So we have made a lot of advancement there.
Very
And what we
impressive.
realized is that instead of just creating our own case repository, since Harvard has become the de facto standard, let us be there, right? And that is our best platform to even popularize our cases being taught all over the world. But we can do a lot more. I mean, certainly that. But today we have done quite a bit in the last 10 years, at least on the case study front.
Say if Miggs wanted to offer a 3 month course, what will it take this investor guy to offer this 3 month course at IIM Bangalore?
It's just an intent and the ability, makes the ability to give that time, right? That's, I think, becomes often the biggest bottleneck, because you guys are working and still want to do this and managing your time, especially if you're not even in the country. I mean, even if you're not in the same city itself, it becomes very difficult, because academic institutes also have a bit of a rhythm. I mean, I think we had a very similar profile like Miggs, investment banker sitting in Singapore, who said that I will come and do this course, and we were very open to that. But he said that, look, I can't come 2 days a week for 10 weeks, right? So I will come twice and 2 weeks, and I will stay there and deliver the course and go. We tried that model. It was a disaster, because students just could not pick up much. I mean, they're saying it is too intense. The person is brilliant, the content is fantastic, but we couldn't learn anything, because in 2 weeks he packed so much. And it was not that he was only teaching those courses only in 2 weeks, there were like five other courses going on, right? So I think those are some of the stuff which we need to work out, and it needs a bit of an understanding from both sides, that if you are doing this, then this much amount of time needs to be given. That's one part of it.
So suppose if we are able to convince Miggs that, hey, can you take a 3 month, 10 week sabbatical, move to IIM Bangalore,
It'll work very
will
well.
the university be receptive to hosting him for 10
Yeah,
weeks and
absolutely, we can
giving
work
him
it
an
out.
MDC and
Yeah, yeah. We can work it
letting
out.
him eat
We
in
are,
our dining hall every day, the idlis and dosas? Oh my
yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah, people like us. I mean, there are loads of people like me, and I can say this on record right now. It's like, I know it didn't work out with that one course with the banker, but a lot of professional courses that I've done at LBS, they work like that. It's like a 1 month like fast forward courses and those kind of things.
Yeah, but I will give you an example which also worked. And so today we have something called workshop courses, where just to accommodate some of these things, we have created these spaces in between terms. And there is one gap between, say, November and December, where we say 2 weeks. So you guys can do a lot of workshop courses. And last to last year, five uh, guys from one particular batch. This is the 93-95 batch, and they were all like this, right? They were all investment bankers, two from Singapore, three from Mumbai. They said, hey, we will run a course together. So five of them landed
Wonderful.
up in IIMB. They stayed here for a week. They also worked with Professor Ravi Angshuman to just understand how to structure the course and what has been covered before, right? So that they can pitch in well. And so Professor Ravi Angshuman and five of them did a workshop course on investments. And so it worked very well, because it was very well received. So institute is quite flexible in that sense, that yes, there are some frameworks within which you have to operate, but beyond that, I think it will be wonderful to have these kind of initiatives.
Typically, we used to have 12 classes in a term, 3 to 6 credits, which were done by the industry practitioner
Hmm.
and the rest done by the professor. They gelled so much. What was taught in theory in one class just came alive in a different class. But it was almost like script पढ़ के suddenly आप movie picturize कर रहे हो.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that model works very well. That you work with a faculty member, so the faculty member brings in the framework necessary, etc., etc., and the practitioner brings in his or her viewpoint. It also takes away. See, in our teaching, the biggest load is actually evaluation, right? I mean, if you ask me to come and teach, I can do it without batting an eyelid. But moment you say you run a course, I said, oh my god, there are 75 students, four components of evaluation. that's going to be a killer, right? And for guys like you who are coming from industry, I mean, and that's like a nightmare. So to balance it out, what we have worked out is that, okay, let the faculty figure out the evaluation, and the heavy hitting as far as evaluation is concerned, let it be done by the faculty, and the alumni or the practitioner comes and does many of the teaching, etc., and then the work in tandem. So you need to have this rhythm of working with a faculty member, and in that case it works out really very well.
So, sort of for those alumni watching this episode who want to come and do a guest lecture or teach, who do they reach out to at IIM Bangalore?
See, for alumni, it is best to use us, the alumni office, as the first point of contact. The more natural way would be that if you have maintained a contact with a faculty member, or if you have somebody who was your favorite faculty on campus, then have a chat with him or her and see whether you can fit in, right? So I have my IIT batchmate who has been a banker, and now he is working for Avishkar Foundation in impact investment. So in my inclusive business model course, so I always invite him. I also invite some social entrepreneurs.
These 600 students are graduating every year. Does each one of them have an industry mentor today?
We have tried faculty mentors, but we realized that people who actually need the mentorship never comes out, never seeks the thing. So then we went to alumni and saying, okay, maybe they will be better off with the alumni, but again, the same challenge is there. So now we are trying something else, uh, which is being driven a little bit by the data analysis, and saying that who are the ones whom we do not see in any of these activities, either sports or cultural or any club activities. And I guess they're the ones who are for some reason, not coming out. And so let us go and try and do something for them. But it's very much early stages in work in progress, and we need to do a lot better job.
Thank you once again, Saurabh.